All right, everybody, welcome back here to another quick video here on a chemistry topic. Today, we're going to tackle significant figures, I think. And if we did have a budget on the show, probably a nice graphic right about now and maybe some music. But for our purposes here, I guess it'll just has to be a little bit of this working as our graphic here. So significant figures. So what is significant figures all about? Well, it has to do with one of those earlier videos that was out when we talked about measurements, and maybe I'll put a link here somewhere where you could go watch that if you haven't seen it already. We did a couple examples on how to properly take chemistry measurements. But really, whenever you take a measurement, as we talked about, there's always two types of numbers that you record. You always record all the certain numbers plus the first uncertain number. And that is really where our estimation comes into play when we take a measurement. So if you remember, whenever we take a measurement, there's always some degree of estimation, and that is that first uncertain number basically that we record. When you do that and you take both of those things together in a measurement, those are how many significant figures. That's now that we know what significant figures are, let's talk about what counts as a significant figure. So there are several rules that we follow when we're counting significant figures. The first one's pretty straightforward. Any non-zero is significant. So any non-zero number that you come across is a significant figure. So for example, if we had 2, 3, 6, when we are counting numbers for significant figures, say this was some type of measurement, we start left to right, and we always start counting when we hit the first non-zero. So clearly that is a non-zero, so that's significant, significant, and significant. This guy here would have 3 significant figures in this case. We had 1, 4, 7, 8. Starting left to right, that would be significant, 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 significant. This guy would have 4 significant figures. So any non-zero, always going to be significant. Always start counting left to right, and you always start counting once you hit the first non-zero number. Now, the rules that give people a hard time are really the zeros. And there's kind of 3 types of zeros that you come across. The first one is sometimes referred to as a leading zero, and those are not significant. So any zeros that come before the very first non-zero number are not going to be significant. So for example, if we had 0.00321, kind of a 3 there. Again, we start counting left to right. So that is not a non-zero number. So we're not going to count that. We're not going to count that. We're not going to count that. We actually do not start counting our significant figures till we get, in this case, to the 3. That is our first non-zero number. So that counts as a significant figure, that counts as a significant figure, and this counts as a significant figure. That's going to give this guy 3 significant figures. All of those zeros that came before we hit that first non-zero number, those are all leading zeros. They are not considered significant figures. And we, again, do not start counting until we hit the very first non-zero number. Now, if we had 0.0000345, once again, not going to start counting, not counting, not counting, going left to right, boom, hits my first non-zero, gonna start counting, counting, gives me 4 significant figures in this case. All these guys right here are going to be significant. These guys, once again, leading zeros do not count. So that's the first type of zero. If we come across a zero that is basically before our first non-zero number, will not be significant. Now, the next type of zero is what is sometimes referred to as a captive zero, or a trap zero, sometimes people call it. And those are going to be significant. And these are zeros that are between two non-zero numbers. So for example, if we had 4003, we would start counting left to right. So boom, that's our first non-zero number. So that is where we're starting to count our significant figures. These two zeros are trapped between the 4 and the 3, and those zeros are going to be significant because there are these captive zeros. And then the 3 would be significant. This would give us 4 significant figures. If I had 303, once again, starting here, counts as significant. Trap zero between two non-zero numbers, going to be significant. And the 3 at the end going to be significant as well, giving me 3 significant figures. Now, the last type of zero is what is referred to as a trailing zero. And this type of zero is one that gives people probably the hardest time. And the reason for that is it can be significant, but could also be non-significant either. So what makes it significant? So it is going to be significant if there is a decimal place, or really a decimal, all right, like this decimal point in the number. Now, this decimal point in the number doesn't need to be next to those zeros. It just needs to be anywhere in that number, and it will make any zeros at the end significant. So for example, if we look at 0.0040, coming here, not going to count, not counting, not counting. These zeros here are our leading zeros that we talked about. The reason they're leading zeros is we're technically not going to start counting our significant figures until, remember, going left to right, we hit the first non-zero. And in this example, that right there is our first non-zero number. So this is where we start counting. And now we're at a zero at the end, which is a trailing zero. And this zero at the end is going to be significant because all the way over there, little sound effect, maybe we found some budget money. So all the way over there where that decimal point is, because there's a decimal point written in this number, that will make this zero significant at the end, and we will have 2 significant figures. Now, if I wrote something like I had 400 centimeters, here we will start counting left to right. So we are going to start here, as that's our first non-zero number. Now we have zeros at the end. And our zeros at the end here are, in this case, not going to be significant. There is absolutely no decimal point written in this number. And this would have 1 significant figure. Now, in the case of counting significant figures, we cannot just assume, you may be asking, don't we usually in certain cases assume that there's a decimal point at the end? And in the case of significant figures, we don't assume it. So if it's not written, it's not there in case of significant figures. Now, if I rewrote this number as 400 with a decimal point there, now we would start counting here, and these 2 zeros are actually going to be significant because there is a decimal point written, and this would be 3 significant figures in this case. So decimal point has to be written in terms of counting significant figures. This decimal point does not need to be near the zeros at the end there. It just needs to be in the number. So for example, if we have this guy here, 0.0004004320000 centimeters. Not sure how you get that measurement, but we'll go with it. How many significant figures are in this number? Take a moment. Think what you got. Well, I do a little ink change here. All right, so hopefully you looked at it. I would tell you, I don't know either, because I was just writing numbers. So let's take a look. We're going to go left to right. That's a 0, not counting yet. That's a 0, not counting, still 0. Boom, right there. This is where I'm going to start counting in this particular case. Now we got that. We have a couple of zeros that are trapped zeros there between two non-zero numbers. They're going to be significant. The 4 would be significant. The 3 would be significant. The 2 would be significant because they are non-zero numbers. Now what's left in this number is the zeros at the end. Are they significant? That is the question. And I hope you're nodding your head yes, because if we come all the way over here, there is a decimal point actually written, which would make these zeros significant. So I lost track myself. Got a lot of scribble up on the page. Let's take a look. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and a 10. So this particular number here would have 10 significant figures, and I think it has every type of zero you could probably imagine in that case. So when we talk about significant figures, the zeros is kind of the important part, and it's really the part people have a lot of trouble with. We got zeros at the beginning, which are leading zeros, not significant. We have zeros that are trapped between two non-zero numbers. They are significant. And we have zeros at the end. They are significant if there's a decimal point written in the number. Remember, it needs to be written in a number for them to be significant. And if there is not, then they are not going to be significant, those zeros at the end. Also remember, as we talked about, always start left to right until we hit that first non-zero number. And that is when you're able to basically figure out how many significant figures you have, because that's where you should start counting. Now, a couple things before we wrap it up here. Scientific notation, which we'll maybe cover in another video. When you have a number that's written in scientific notation, which by the way has a general form of n times 10 to the n, that is a number between 1 and 10. And that is either a positive or negative number, basically depending on which way you need to move the decimal place to get to a number between 1 and 10. So we had something like 1.2 times 10 to the 3. That is a number written in scientific notation. When you write a number in scientific notation, all the numbers before the times 10 part are significant. So these are significant. That means that this would have two significant figures. If I have 3.20 times 10 to the minus 2, really this part of the number doesn't matter. It is this part here, and this is 3 significant figures. That's the reason sometimes we do write things in scientific notation, as we might talk about in maybe a future quick video. We can control how many significant figures we wanted. If I want 2 significant figures with that number, there it is, 2 significant figures. I want 1 significant figure. There it is, 1 significant figure. So when you have a numbers written in scientific notation, basically this number right here, or any of those numbers that are written, including zeros, will be significant figures. All right, well, I think that wraps it up for this quick video on significant figures, how to count them, how to figure them out. Thank you for watching. Again, if you like these videos, want any type of topics that maybe I could help you out with very quickly with a quick video, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I guess maybe we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.